rifle didn't shake. The boots didn't shift. But the royal guard turned. Across the ocean of black coats and tear-stained faces, one motion shattered the sacred stillness of the Queen's funeral. He broke formation. Gasps fluttered across the crowd. Phones froze mid-air. Even the air itself seemed to hesitate. But this wasn't defiance. It was duty. Before we reveal how one silent promise shattered centuries of protocol, tell us where you're tuning in from today. And if you believe true honor sometimes means breaking the rules, this is a story you'll remember.
A promise whispered in a quiet palace corridor years ago was about to be fulfilled. Sergeant Thomas Alden had spent 15 years in the Queen's Guard. 15 years of never flinching, never failing. 15 years of scarlet wool, white gloves, and ceremonial perfection. But before the uniform, before the discipline, there was a man who taught him compassion. Declan Shaw. Once the Queen's personal footman, Declan had served Her Majesty for over 6 decades. He moved through the palace like a shadow, silent, graceful, invisible. But to Thomas, he had been something more, a mentor, a friend. And on one cold evening years ago, Declan pulled Thomas aside with a quiet request. "If I'm still alive when her time comes, and I can't get close, promise me, lad. Help me say goodbye." Thomas had promised. Today was the Queen's final journey, and Declan was in the crowd, frail, shaking, and too far back. The royal procession moved with haunting precision. Sailors pulled the gun carriage through the streets of London, the royal standard draped over the Queen's casket. The imperial state crown gleamed under the steel-gray sky. A silence thicker than fog fell over the city. Captain Victor Harrington, rigid, severe, stood across from Thomas, eyes scanning for flaws. He was the kind of officer who treated tradition like scripture. Thomas held his post, motionless. But then he saw Declan, just beyond the barriers, struggling, swaying, invisible to the world. Declan's breath came in short gasps. His thin frame leaned on strangers. His polished shoes, once so proud, sank unevenly on the damp cobblestone. He'd come to say goodbye, but no one saw him, except Thomas. The coffin was 30 yards away. 20, 10. And in that moment, Thomas Alden, 15-year veteran of the Queen's Guard, moved. He turned, he walked. The click of his boots echoed like cannon fire in the silence. Tourists parted instinctively, sensing the gravity of something they didn't yet understand. A scarlet figure cutting through grief. Captain Harrington's face twisted in disbelief, but Thomas never hesitated. He reached Declan in 7 steps. "Sergeant Alden," Declan whispered, shocked. "You can't." Thomas said nothing. He took Declan's arm, placed his rifle on his shoulder, and guided him forward. Thomas brought Declan to the front, directly beside his vacant post. The Queen's casket approached. Declan, now upright and trembling, lifted a hand in salute. A gesture formed from decades of devotion, from love, from loss, from legacy. The coffin passed, and in that breathless moment, the promise was kept. Thomas returned to his post with the same precision he had abandoned it. No hesitation, no apology, just honor. The crowd said nothing, but their silence spoke volumes. Captain Harrington's jaw clenched. There would be consequences. Hours later, Thomas stood before the regiment's top brass. "You abandoned your post during a state funeral," Harrington barked. "Do you understand what you've done?" Thomas stood firm. "Yes, sir. I broke protocol. But I kept a promise to a man who served this institution longer than I've been alive." The room fell still. Then another voice spoke. Lady Evelyn Banks, Senior Secretary to the Royal Household. "Declan Shaw was listed in the Queen's personal funeral notes," she said quietly. She asked that he be included. His health made it impossible. What Sergeant Alden did fulfilled her wishes. A long pause. "The family extends their gratitude." Colonel James Stratton leaned forward. "You will forfeit 2 weeks' pay. You will serve an extra month of ceremonial duty. And your actions will be noted." A beat. "But so will your courage." Thomas saluted. Not from pride, from peace. Later that evening, Thomas visited Declan. The old man was weaker now, but his eyes sparkled as Thomas placed a small envelope in his hand. "From the Colonel," Thomas said, "and the palace." Declan read it slowly, then looked up. "Was it worth it, lad?" he asked. Thomas smiled. "Every step." As the city returned to normal and the world moved on, few would remember the single guard who broke formation. But one man remembered, and one promise endured. Some uniforms are worn with silence, some traditions are kept by those never seen, and some goodbyes deserve to be witnessed. Have you ever seen someone break the rules to honor something greater? Share your story below, and don't miss the next one.